For the program, we apologize for coming a little behind schedule. We're experiencing some technical glitches. But however, let's rush to our newspaper review segment where we have Nigeria's most influential and Nigeria's foremost Friday newspaper, Leadership Friday. Leadership's leading story today is a sad one. Shock tributes as Bayelsa Deputy Governor Slumps dies. Shock tributes as Bayelsa Deputy Governor Slumps dies. Of course, there was a report yesterday that he is actually slumped and was rushed to a hospital, paramedical center here in Abuja. But unfortunately, the deputy governor did not make it. Ewuru Jakpo was born September 5, 1965 in Sagbama. Leadership has a timeline just beside his picture, gracing the leading story. He served as Commissioner for Works and Infrastructure, represented by Bayelsa West Senatorial District from 2019 to 2020 in the 9th Assembly. And he became Deputy Governor in 2020. Was conferred Doctor of Philosophy, PhD in Human Rights and Labor Law in 2023. May the soul of the Deputy Governor rest in peace. Beneath the leading story, PZ Cushions reverses plan to exit Africa amid Nigerians' recovery growth. That story is also a cherry one. PZ Cushions reverses plan to exit Africa amid Nigeria's recovery growth. 8 Jos Varsity students die in road crash. That story is on page 7. Of course, we carried it on Leadership Television yesterday. 8 Jos Varsity students die in road crash. Is 9. The toll is actually 9. Nigerian leaders treat public office as family enterprise, coming from Emir Sanusi. Oshomole Udume clash at Reno Mokri's ambassadorial screening. Lawmakers clear mockery, Fani Kayode, Mahmoud Yakubu, others. That story continues on page 7 of Leadership Friday. We move ahead towards the masthead of Leadership Friday, and the Rivers Speaker Tess Fubara, still the embattled governor of Rivers State. You have ignited fresh crisis. That story is on page 28 of Leadership. You have ignited fresh crisis. Rivers Speaker Tess Fubara. On the business boss of Leadership Friday, Dangote launches 1 trillion naira education fund to support 1.3 million Nigerian students, pledges 25% of personal wealth to foundation. Federal government loss initiative as governors promise support. These are kickers to the business leading story on the business boss of Leadership Friday. Dangote launches 1 trillion naira education fund to support 1.3 million Nigerian students. That is a good one, considering the fact that according to UNICEF, Nigeria has the highest burden of out of school children in the world, with about an estimated 10.7 million out of school. Nigerian industrialist Aliko Dangote on Thursday announced a 100 billion naira annual education support initiative, describing it as a long-term investment aimed at reducing financial barriers that drive millions of young Nigerians out of school. The program is expected to cost more than 1 trillion naira over the next decade. The presidency praised Dangote for unveiling what is now the largest private education support program in Nigeria, describing the initiative as a major boost as a major boost to the federal government's human capital development agenda. Speaking at the launch in Lagos, Dangote said the plan will support 45,000 new students every year from 2026, rising to 155,000 beneficiaries by the 4th year and remaining at that level for 10 years. In total, the scheme is projected to reach 1.3 million students across all 774 local government areas in the country. That is a good one. We say thank you to Nigeria's, not just Nigeria, Africa's richest billionaire, Dangote. Lastly, beside the masthead of Leadership Friday, Super Eagles urged to forge new narrative at AFCON after World Cup heartbreak. That story is on page 7 of Leadership Friday. And that takes us to page 3 of Leadership, where we have our stand. Today's stand is on Nigerian economy, inflation, and the challenge of poverty. Nigerian economy, inflation, and the challenge of poverty. Today's stand in Leadership. Perhaps we should just take the stand in the stand. He says these optimistic projections, although encouraging, fall short of laying a solid foundation for economic prosperity. Although the food component of the consumer price index is moderating, we should not overlook the fact that the seasonality of major food crops and importation accounts for the relief. Given the structural deficiencies, including an infrastructural gap, insecurity, weak governance at both corporate and government levels, and an inability to harness available resources to diversify the revenue base and isolate the economy from market volatility, serious setbacks are likely to occur in reining in inflation. Of major concern is availability of finance for the agricultural sector. Banks are risk averse when it comes to agriculture, in particular. However, significant agrarian initiatives of the Central Bank of Nigeria should be revisited, reformed, and re-implemented in a well-coordinated manner by the Ministry of Agriculture and related agencies at both the federal and sub-national levels. Today's Sunday in leadership, we just took some excerpts: Nigerian economy, inflation, and the challenge of poverty. And that also takes us to the back page of Leadership Friday, where we have conversation with Azu. Today's conversation is on Sam After 5. Of course, the late founder of a Leadership Media Group, Sam Dazaya, clocked 5 years on the 11th of December. That was yesterday, since he passed on. And that is today's conversation from Azu Isiakwene today. Sam lives on in another realm, the realm of words, where he made his most tremendous impact. Looking back, it appears that Sam wrote Political Decline of the North, or Atiku is Finished in a Glorious Era. Of course, there are great northern minds terrified by poor, crooked leadership that has wrecked the region. Yet northerners who helped to hasten the decline Sam wrote about now have children and grandchildren who have joined the business of not only killing the North, but also doing so quickly. Excerpts from today's conversation with Azu, Sam After 5. Of course, we have the picture of the late founder in that conversation. Before we leave the back page, we all like to visit Ghana Must Go. And today in the news, Adeleke emerges Accord Party candidate. Ghana Must Go says he won the dancing competition. I thought it was very, very funny, but you have to ask the Osun State Governor, Demola Adeleke. It's on that note we conclude today's review of Leadership newspaper. Don't forget to log into the website of Leadership for continuation of these headline stories. Don't also forget to log in and follow us on all our social media platforms for more news. We move ahead to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that is The Guardian. The Guardian's leading story says pricing weak tourism infrastructure threatening $2 billion dirty December target. Pricing weak tourism infrastructure threatening $2 billion dirty December target. That story is on page 6 of The Guardian. Dangote launches 1 trillion naira education fund to support 1.3 million students. Budget tomorrow deepens as Tinubu prepares 2026 estimates ahead of MTEF approval. Budget tomorrow deepens as Tinubu prepares 2026 estimates ahead of MTEF approval. Sanwo-Olu reaffirms Lagos State government's commitment to protection of lives, property. And just beneath the masthead of The Guardian, Ambassadors Ndume Oshomole clash at screening as Omokri orders take bow. Ikeja Electric protest as FCCPC sees office over defiance of NEC order. Ikeja Electric protest as FCCPC sees office over defiance of NERC order. Poor network, INEC's toughest challenge in IREP upload, says Amu Pitan. Poor network, INEC's toughest challenge in IREP upload, says Amu Pitan. And that also brings to a close the review of front headline stories on The Guardian this Thursday. For more, log into the website of The Guardian newspaper. We move ahead to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that is Nigerian Tribune. Nigerian Tribune's leading story says reps ask federal government to prioritize forest allocation to airline operators. Call for 50% reduction in cost of tickets during Yuletide. That story is on page 7 of Nigerian Tribune. Call for 50% reduction in cost of tickets during Yuletide. Abuja throne. Fusegbewa ruling house disowns Kwam 1. You are not one of us, family says. The story continues in a developing story. Awujale throne, Hussein Gbowa, ruling house, Disun Squam 1. You are not one of us, family says. This is a developing story. Dangote unveils 1 trillion naira scholarship scheme for 1.3 million Nigerian students. Enugu government earmarks 10 billion naira for phase 1 of 135.4-kilometer rail project. Catholic priestess caught her terrorist bombed Owo Church. We move ahead to the masthead and above. Oshomole Udume clash as Senate screens Reno mockery orders. Ambassadorial nominees enjoy bow and go privilege. PDP Ogun Adamawa governors mourn as Bayelsa deputy governor dies. That story is on page 2 of Nigerian Tribune, and that also concludes review of front headline stories on Nigerian Tribune this Friday. Don't forget to log into the website of Nigerian Tribune for continuation of those headline stories. We move ahead to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that is Daily Sun. Daily Sun's leading story says airlines give condition for airfare reduction, demand adoption of ECOWAS 25% charge cut, reps seek 50% reduction in aviation charges. Oshomole Ndume heated exchange at Omokri's ambassadorial screening. Dangote plans dollar dividend payouts as $20 billion refinery goes public in 2026. Catholic priest narrates in court how terrorists bombed Owo Church. Plateau mourns as 8 Unijust students die in auto crash. And that takes us to the stories just by the masthead of Daily Sun. Ngige, the EFCC arrests Ngige over alleged contract irregularities. SAGF Malami laments continued detention. Niger agree on boundary redemarcation, security coordination. And that also brings to a close the review of front headline stories on Daily Sun newspaper this Friday. For more, log into the website of Daily Sun newspaper, www.thesun.ng. That takes us to the last paper we have on our lineup this Friday, and that is Blueprint. Blueprint says achieving real-time results upload to IREV at toughest battle. Amupitan urges NCC network providers to step up technologies. Explains why those arrested in Anambra Post not yet charged. Kick us to the leading story on today's Blueprint newspaper. Achieving real-time results upload to IREV at toughest battle, coming from the INEC chair, Amupitan. Reno Mokri Fani Kayode orders case Senate ambassadorial screening. Ndume Oshomole clash, leading story in all the papers we have on our lineup this Friday. Federal government lost Dangote's 1 trillion naira scholarship scheme for 1.3 million Nigerians. Every student in school strengthens our economy, reduces poverty, coming from Dangote. Now that destroys 5 billion naira counterfeit substandard drugs. 8 Unijust students die in auto crash. And that is also a story just beneath the masthead of Blueprint. Bayelsa Deputy Governor Slumps moved to hospital ICU, but however, he has since passed on, as reported in Leadership and one of the papers we had for review this Friday. BPP's SON signed MOU to strengthen Nigeria's industrial standards. And lastly, on the cover of Blueprint newspaper, and that is Sports News, AFCON Chel unveils final 28-man list. That concludes the review of front headline stories on Blueprint newspaper this Friday, December 12, 2025. For more, don't forget to log into the website of Blueprint newspaper. It's also on this note we conclude today's Inside Nigeria on Leadership Television. For more, log into the website of Leadership and all our social media handles. My name is Winifred Webo. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last